Well, hello everyone, Texie88 here and welcome to another retro gaming review. And after having recently reviewed the Sinclair ZX Spectrum and Commodore 64 versions of Dragon Spirit, now I'm taking a look at the Amstrad CPC version. Now I have to admit, when I first saw that screen that we've just come from, I was panicking because that was clearly a lift from the Spectrum version. I thought, oh no, is this going to be another of those Amstrad games that's going to be a lazy Spectrum port? But now I've seen this, my mind's sort of been put at ease, and I'm hoping that it's not going to be a case that it's going to be just that it's not going to actually be a Spectrum port after all. I've actually noticed that dragon in the top right corner actually blinks every so often, which is a nice touch. Looks a bit blocky, and I have to admit, but music's nice though. So let's see how this version fares against the two versions I've played previously. Well, if I do have one complaint about this version, it's a bit jerky and the graphics are incredibly blocky. Oh, you can piss off. Nice and colourful, but the graphics are blocky and the scrolling's a bit jerky. It's got the usual QAOP space for the most basic controls, and enter for bombs. And you can, unlike the Spectrum version, you can actually hold down the fire button to continuously fire your fire. Not sure about the sound effects it plays when you hit something though. It sounds more like someone's been on the beans. Ooh. Ooh, that's a bit grisly. They turn into very bony, skeletal remains when you hit those things on the ground. Oh, shut your yap. I really hope this isn't going to be one that sends you back to the start every time you die. Actually, maybe it isn't, because I don't remember that from the very beginning. Ooh! Is that really the best sound effect they could have come up with for an enemy getting hit? I mean, it's just a brief burst of white noise. It's like someone's suddenly leaning over to crack off a big wet fart. I mean, I know it's an Amstrad, an 8-bit machine, but I'm sure that it could have done better than that. Oh god, that was close. Well, at least the collision detection is reasonably forgiving in this, because otherwise I would have got really ticked off. And now I'm accompanied. Whoa, blimmin' hell. Actually, maybe it's not so much like a fart. It's more like you're being attacked by a bunch of bees in a hive or something. Well, or wasps maybe, because bees tend to die. I'd also preferred it if their bullets could look a bit different to yours. When you got your bullets and theirs at the same time, it's really hard to make out what's going on and which bullets are yours when it gets really hectic. Oh, sod off! Pretty small playing area as well. I mean, I know that the Spectrum version also had a restricted playing area. Something about this somehow makes it seem a bit more cramped than even that version. I'm also not entirely convinced about the animation of that. For goodness sake. The animation on those wings of that dragon isn't entirely convincing. It's more like it's just trying to. It's a bit like if you were doing an exercise in which you were stretching your arms out and back in again. It looks more like that than a dragon actually flapping its wings. Oh no, I remember these from the other two versions. The stalactites of death. I mean, I know they're not coming from the ceiling because obviously we're viewed from above. Oh, bloody hell! Why are you meant to get in there? He's not giving you any gaps to sneak in a quick shot. I'm still having to do this scrolling, cycling through Malarkey arcade style to key in as a key in initials, but at least it's not as painfully slow as it was on the CPC version. Let's give this another whirl. That display is so blocky. Okay. That wasn't very nice. Kill me within a few seconds of actually starting. Yeah, that scrolling's pretty jerky, and the Amstrad seems to really struggle with scrolling at the best of times. I mean, it's not the jerkiest scrolling I've seen. I mean, the scrolling in Green Beret or Russian Attack, if you're in the States, was way worse than this in terms of jerky scrolling. And don't even get me started on the scrolling in Double Dragon 3. Ooh. Oh, goodness me. Why can't their bullets look a bit different to yours? Well, I know what I'm firing isn't bullets, but... Oh, but now... What? I hit that. Bollocks! Oh, God. Bzz, 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 bzz. Ugh. I suppose it plays okay, but it's still a bit woolly. I mean, it would really have helped if the enemy projectiles didn't look exactly like yours, because when there's lots and lots flying about on the screen, you're really worried about that one of the bullets, well, one of the projectiles you're walking into is one of theirs and not one of yours. Oh, come off! I didn't hit that, and you know it. Oh, God! You were starting to get a bit slow down there. Oh, God! I wanted to get that egg, and I couldn't. God, that was lucky. What? What the hell just hit me? I'll have to look at that footage again. I didn't see anything hit me. Oh, God, this is so jerky. Stop giving me that. Give me something decent. Damn it. I got stuck in between a rock and hard place then. Again, give me something decent. Like, give me another head or something. Oh, piss off. It's such a shame. The graphics are pretty colourful. It's just that it's so jerky that it actually makes it harder to tell which shots are yours and which are the enemies, because they both look the same. And if it was smoother, it'd be a lot easier to tell which ones were yours. But when it's as jerky and choppy as this, it's actually a lot harder to tell. Seriously, how was I meant to get that? What? Yay! Oh, you fart! Finally managed to get a power up that gives me a second head, and then I get absolutely arse raped. It's such a shame. The controls are really quite responsive, but everything's so jerky. Oh God! It even makes it a little bit hard to tell when you're about to get hit. What? I was firing endlessly, and how did that not die? Oh God! Some of the hit detection in this is a little off. I mean, it seems like the dragon is a complete square hitbox, because that bullet was clearly in the section behind my dragon's left wing, but it's still counted as a hit. See, look at this. Look at all these projectiles. They look exactly like the ones I'm firing. Look, slow down. Oh, you can cock right off. At least I got that fire mode. I noticed it actually let me keep the fire mode power up, which I just a fraction of a second managed to get before I lost that life. Yeah, I powered up my fire, because if you collect 3 of those, and it tells you underneath where it says fire, just underneath your score, how many of those you've collected, and collect 3 and it powers up your fire rate. So you look at the, oh God. It's so choppy that it's hard to, it makes it harder to avoid things. Those plants aren't as well animated as they are in the other versions. I mean, it's 2-frame animation there. Oh, goodness me. See again, slow down. They needed to cut back on the number of enemies on screen, Not only because it's too hectic and you can barely avoid anything when that happens anyway, but also because it slows down the action, makes it even choppier than it already was. Right. One of 3 fire mode upgrade things. Oh no, I'm coming up to that boss again. I know soon. Well, once I believe I've got a couple of cases of those stalactite shaped things, whatever the hell they are, coming up in a moment. Oh god. Come on. Why is there such a great big section there where nothing's happening? I don't remember that happening in the other 2 versions. Oh yeah, of course I better stay to the side because of this. So you look at this. Oh, it's actually fires diagonally in this one. I'm sure that fired at me, hit me just... Well, that one definitely did. What? Not even an explosion sound effect? Well, that was disappointing. I mean, when you defeat an end-level guardian, you want a nice, decent, satisfying explosion to really feel like you've accomplished something, and that was pathetic. I mean, what didn't even have a sound effect? Ugh, God. Well, I have to admit, I am enjoying this more than the Commodore 64 version, even though it doesn't have as big a playing area. But I still think that the Spectrum version's a bit better, simply because everything's so much smoother. And you get these really lengthy periods in which nothing happens in this. See, look at this. What? Again, that's a problem when every bullet or equivalent looks exactly like yours. You can't tell them apart when it's so jerky. Oh, you absolute git. Oh, shield. I powered up my fire, which is something. The trouble is I lost that second head. Am I actually shooting fireballs there? No, I mean, not the ones that I'm firing from my dragon's mouth, but it looks like I'm actually shooting balls of fire. Oh, please let me get it. Thank you. Well, I've lost my shield, unfortunately. God, I very nearly didn't see that egg because of it being the same colour as the background. Seriously, this isn't a Spectrum. You shouldn't have that problem. God, everything just looks so blocky. Blooming hell, that nearly hit me. Oh, actually, I think it did. No, it can't have done because I would have lost a head. Oh, God, these things again. I can barely see them. I'm actually starting to struggle to see the shots because they blend in so well with the background. So you look at this, slowing down because there's simply too much on the screen. I mean, I know you have to be the game makers had to be as faithful to the original version as possible, but at least make some cutbacks so it continues to run at a reasonably respectable frame rate. This is really starting to slow down. What? That didn't even touch me. Well, I think I'm going to wind it up there because I've goofed there, so never mind. So that's Dragon Spirit for the Amstrad CPC. Noble attempt, but out of the 3 8-bit versions I've played, which is this version, the Spectrum version, the Commodore 64 version, I definitely think that the Spectrum version is a much smoother and more playable version. I mean, this gives a pretty good stab, but the jerky scrolling and the blockier graphics a bit of do count against it somewhat, especially as things and some of the colour choices in that bit I just reached. I mean, some of those enemies and even eggs were actually a lot harder to see because of that red being too close to the red of the things that were actually on screen, and the fact that the actual, for want of a better description, bullets had a red border that actually made them even harder to pinpoint. So graphics, well, as I've said, pretty blocky. The dragon's wing animation isn't as accomplished as it is in the other 2 versions. I mean, it looked more like the wings were just being stuck out and being retracted rather than flapping. Or at the very least, it wasn't as convincing as it was in the other 2 versions. And as you saw, some of the graphics being too similar in colour to some of the backgrounds made them harder to see and or pinpoint. I mean, there was that point where I nearly didn't see an egg because it was exactly the same colour of red as the red of the background. And there's the problem where your shots before you've powered them up look exactly the same as everyone else's bullets, so it's hard when you've got a whole slew of them flying about. It's hard to tell which ones are yours and which ones aren't, bearing in mind you don't die if you collide with yours, whereas you do if you collide with theirs. Sound, pretty disappointing. You get this kind of sound that's halfway between someone passing wind and the buzzing of a wasp whenever a tiny enemy explodes. There seemed to be no explosion sound effect for that boss at the end of level 1, which is really disappointing, and the resulting explosion itself wasn't very was not very exciting either. You didn't really feel like you'd achieved something. But apart from that, the sound is really quite sparse. I mean, if you don't fire, there's no sound effects. There's no sound effects whatsoever, and there's no in-game music. I mean, admittedly, the other 2 versions didn't have in-game music as well, but it's particularly when you had those moments in this where there was literally nothing happening for several seconds, running well into double figures of seconds, I hasten to add. It seems like there needs to be something to break up the monotony, and they're just, even if it's just an ambient atmosphere sound or just something. Gameplay. Well, the jerkiness I mentioned and the problems I mentioned with the bullets actually impact on gameplay. Everything moves really choppily, and when there are a lot of things on screen, there was noticeable slowdown, and that also made the on-screen action look even choppier, and therefore bullets and other projectiles and the like were even harder to avoid than they already are, and that is pretty disappointing. scrolling's a bit jerky as well, which also is a bit of a disappointment. But as I said, the Amstrad CPC seems to have some quite substantial issues with scrolling at the best of times. It's not awfully jerky, but as I said earlier, but it is a shame that it's not a bit smoother than it actually is in this. And of course, there were those aforementioned poor colour choices, which also impacted on gameplay by making things harder to see. It comes to something when the Spectrum version of a vertically scrolling shoot 'em up is actually easier to tell what's going on than one of the other versions. So I'm going to give Dragon Spirit on the Amstrad CPC. I think I'm going to give it 7 out of 10. So anyway, hope you all enjoyed this retro game review. Hope to catch you on another one soon. Texie88 out.